Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our monthly meeting of the Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals. It's great to see so many faces back in this room again after a year and 4 months. At this time, I'd like to ask everybody who's able to stand as Amy Diaz, who represents all of our great county employees, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank
you, Amy. Amy's an engineer with the county DOT. Amy, we really appreciate the work you do for the county. I'm going to take a quick break from today's printed agenda for just 1 second, and that is because I'm happy to announce that we have a new member of the BZA today representing District 4, and that is Jacqueline McSwain. Jacqueline was recently appointed by Commissioner Sheffield and subsequently approved by the County Board of Commissioners. She works in real estate and has been an active member of the Cobb community for many years, so we'd all like to extend a very warm welcome to you today. And we look forward to your participation on and your contributions to the work of this board. All right, so now back to the agenda. For those of you who don't have a copy of the agenda or who are attending for the first time, the first thing that we will concern ourselves with are the cases that are on consent. These are cases that have been reviewed by the board and by the professionals from the various departments in the county, and to which there is no known opposition at this time. We've discussed these in our work sessions. Certain staff comments and stipulations have been made, and we don't anticipate any further discussion is needed for a decision. So as we go forward, the county division zoning manager, or zoning division manager rather, Mr. John Peterson, will read each case into the record, and we would ask that each applicant raise their hand to identify themselves as their case is read into the record. And likewise, if you're here in opposition to a case that's currently on consent, we'll ask you to identify yourself as that case is called. We'll then pull that case off consent and hear it as part of our regular case agenda. And we'll then vote on all the cases that are still on consent at that time. Once that's done, we'll proceed to our regular case agenda. So with that, I think we're ready to address the consent cases. Mr. Peterson, do you have any comments you want to make?
Yes, I do have one announcement to make before we begin. There's one case on today's printed agenda which has been withdrawn without prejudice, and this case will not be heard today. That's variance case V57, Aqua Design Pools and Spas LLC. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice, Mr. Chairman, Board, because they have revised their plan to clarify what's on the property, and they actually do not need a variance for this property anymore. Right. So V57 was withdrawn without prejudice. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to start the consent agenda. Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals, variance hearing consent agenda for June 9th, 2021. First case on consent is variance case V52, Glenn Raynell. Request a variance to number 1, reduce the rear setback from required 30 feet to 11 feet. Number 2, reduce the rear setback for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for an approximately existing 192 square foot shed from required 30 feet to 2 feet. And number 3, reduce the side setback for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for an existing approximately 192 square foot shed from required 10 feet to 2 feet in land lot 697 of the 16th district. The property is located on the northwest corner of Oak Rill Road and Spear Point Drive. Staff recommends approval subject to the development inspection comments. Is the applicant present? Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V52? Mr. Chairman, is no one opposed to this variance? Okay. Variance case V53, Andrew Bruce and Sherry Bruce request a variance to reduce the rear setback from required 35 feet to 24 feet in land lot 239 of the 20th district. The property is located at the southern terminus of Menlo Way, south of Menlo Drive. Staff recommends approval. Is the applicant here for variance case V53? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V53? Let the record show no one opposed. Variance case V54, William D. English III requests a variance to number 1, allow a second electrical meter on a residential lot and 2, allow access on a gravel driveway for the accessory storage building in land lot 233 of the 20th District. The property is located on the north side of Burnt Hickory Road, east of Mars Hill Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to number 1, traffic comments, and number 2, no commercial or dwelling use of the accessory structure. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V54? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V55, Yasmin Usel requests a variance to number 1, reduce the rear setback from required 35 feet to 32 feet, which is existing. And number 2, increase the maximum allowable impervious surface from 35% to 55.7%, which is existing, in land lot 225 of the 1st District. The property is located on the south side of Waterford Green Drive, east of Lower Roswell Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to stormwater management comments. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V55? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V56, John Molander requests a variance to increase the allowed sign area from 49 square feet to 77.29 square feet in land lots 189 and 190 of the 18th District. The property is located on the southwest corner of Factory Shaw's Road and Mapleton Parkway. Staff recommends approval, subject to traffic comments. Is the applicant present? Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V56? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V58, Aqua Design Pools and Spas LLC request a variance to number 1, increase the maximum allowable impervious coverage from 35% to 51%. And number 2, reduce the rear setback from required 30 feet to 29 feet, which is existing, in land lot 458 of the 16th District. The property is located on the east side of Ashmore Hall Drive, north of Davis Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to stormwater management comments. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V58? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V59, Tammy Brinkley requests a variance to reduce the side setback from required 7 feet, from 7.5 feet to 2.5 feet adjacent to the southern property line in land lot 137 of the 19th District. The property is located on the east side of Ballycastle Point, south of Glen Creek Court. Staff recommends approval, subject to development and inspection comments. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V59? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V60, Terry Pickell requests a variance to number 1, reduce the rear setback from required 35 feet to 13 feet, which is existing. And number 2, allow a second electrical meter on a residential lot in land lot 143 of the 20th District. The property is located on the north side of Hogan Drive, west of Jim Owens Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, traffic comments. Number 2, development and inspections comments. Number 3, stormwater management comments. And number 4, no commercial use of the structure. Is the applicant present? Is there anyone here opposed to variance case of V60? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V61, James R. Dent requests a variance to number 1, allow a second electrical meter on a residential lot. Number 2, allow parking and/or maneuvering on a non-hardened or treated surface, which is an existing gravel driveway. Number 3, reduce the rear setback for an accessory structure, which is an approximately 264 square foot, 1-story frame building from 35 feet to 6 feet. Number 4, reduce the rear setback for an accessory structure for an approximately 436 square foot, 1-story brick and frame from required 35 feet to 3 feet. And number 5, reduce the major side setback for an accessory structure for an approximately 436 square foot, 1-story brick and frame building from required 25 feet to 23 feet in land lot 100 of the 17th District. The property is located on the northwest corner of South Hurt Road and Concord Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to traffic comments. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V61? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V62, John Stedham requests a variance to, number one, reduce the front setback from required 25 feet to 20 feet, and number two, reduce the side setback from required 10 feet to 5 feet adjacent to the southern property line. Land Lot 229 of the 20th District. The property is located on the east side of Benbrook Drive, west of County Line Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to number one, development inspections comments, and number two, stormwater management comments. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V62? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V63, Herbert McCoy III requests a variance to number one, allow an accessory structure, which is a proposed approximately 460 square foot garage to be closer to the side street right-of-way line than the principal building. Number two, reduce the front setback for an accessory structure, which is a proposed 460 square foot garage, required 45 feet to 35 feet. Number three, reduce the side setback for an accessory structure, which is a proposed approximately 460 square foot garage from required 12 feet to 11 feet adjacent to the northeastern property line. And number four, reduce the side setback for an accessory structure, an existing approximately 120 square foot frame shed, required 5 feet to 2 feet adjacent to the eastern property line, in land lots 889 and 890 of the 17th District. The property is located on the southeast corner of Orchard Knob Road and Lansdowne Drive. Staff recommends approval, subject to number one, development and inspections comments, and number two, stormwater management comments. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V63? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V64, WB Dick requests a variance to number one, allow parking and/or maneuvering on a non-hardened and treated surface, which is an existing gravel drive. Number two, allow an accessory structure or use, which is a proposed 7,200 square foot tennis court to be located to the side of the principal building. And number three, allow the setbacks for an accessory structure or use over 1,000 square feet for the proposed 7,200 square foot tennis court from required 100 feet to 20 feet adjacent to the northern property line and to 85 feet adjacent to the eastern property line in land lot 278 of the 19th District. The property is located on the west side of McPherson Drive, which is a private easement, north of Cook Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, stormwater management comments. Number two, fencing up to 10 feet tall be added around the tennis court. Number three, mesh screening to be added to the fence. And number four, all lighting to be environmentally sensitive and directed towards the tennis courts. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case of V64? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And that completes the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman and Board.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Okay, so it's now back to this board. Were there any comments, questions, or concerns that anybody might have? Mr. Bloin.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, two modifications. With respect to V54, that the structure will not be used as that the accessory structure will not be used as a separate residence or as a separate living structure, and that no commercial use will be made of the structure. It's for personal storage only. And with respect to V64, as to transportation comments, that be modified to provide that the applicant, who only has an easement right, will exercise his best efforts to obtain consents to have easement users pave the last 25 feet of the easement if possible.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? In that case, I will call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by, back to pushing buttons today.
Do we have a motion in a second?
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, sorry.
can we make sure we have a motion in a second?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did skip. Yeah, okay, I needed a second. Sorry, should we revote then? Sorry about that. Thank you for catching that. All right, now I'll call for a vote. Thank you. All right, and the motion passes with a vote of 5-0.
Okay, all those folks that were on consent, you're free to leave and go. You can go ahead and return your signs to the zoning division if you like. Moving into the continued or held cases on today's agenda. First case is variance case V17. Telsforo Samaniego Cruz request a variance to number 1. Allow an accessory structure, which is an existing approximately 252 square foot playground building, to be to the side of the principal building. Number 2, reduce the side setback for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for an approximately 252 square foot playground building from required 10 feet to 1 foot adjacent to the northern property line. Number 3, allow parking and/or maneuvering on a non-hardened treated surface, which is gravel. Number 4, increase the maximum allowable impervious coverage from 35% to 54%, which was existing. And number 5, reduce the setbacks for an accessory structure, which is an approximately 880 square foot 2-story utility building and carport, from required 100 feet to 29 feet adjacent to the southern property line, and 29 feet adjacent to the northern property line, and the 6 feet adjacent to the eastern property line, in land lot 228 of the 17th District. The property is located on the east side of Allen Springs Road, north of Pat Mill Road. Is the applicant present? Yeah, the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case of V17? Let the record show there's no one here opposed. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
If you all could please state your name for the record then.
Daniela Peratian.
Telsforo Samaniego.
Okay, thank you very much. And you've got 10 minutes to update us on your case.
Yes, we created our last plan because we don't plan to ask for another extension. We created it and we met with Mr. Carl Carver and he approved of it, but I'm not sure if you guys also got a picture of it or if you want me to.
We did. You can go ahead and tell us about it.
Okay. On the new plan, it shows how we plan to do the new driveway that we're going to put concrete all over. And it shows the drywall down there in the corner by the shed. I don't know if you can see it. And then we plan to remove the shed also. And there, it shows the channel flow of the channel water that's going to go into the flow in the drywall. ¿Qué más quiere decir?
O sea, que,
Ya le platiqué el plano. ¿Qué más quiere decir?
o sea que lo que se pidió con la inspectora que nos pidieron ya está en el plano.
Sí. He said that everything that was given to us as feedback, we've used it to make the new plan, and I think we met the needs. I'm not sure.
Okay. I noticed, yeah, you've removed a lot of the gravel that was behind the house too.
Yes.
Looks like, right? Okay. Anything else?
¿Quiere decir algo más?
O sea que dígale que es lo último que nos
Ya
están
le
pidiendo
dije.
ese plano y que ya está presente ahora.
Yeah, I did that.
So,
He said that that's the last plan, that he's not going to ask for another extension.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
I just said.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes.
As we know, your case has been managed by Fred Beloin, and I know Fred's been actively involved with you guys and on this case, so I'll turn it over to Fred to kind of lead the discussion at this case.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and first of all, I've got to kind of take a pass on that. Carl Carver's been the one working it pretty hard.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate your constructive efforts in working with Mr. Carver to try to get this all manageable. Will you be able to make the changes suggested by your plan within 90 days?
Dice si en 90 días puede ser todo el cambio que le están pidiendo. En 90 días.
en 90 días vienen siendo 2 meses. ¿no?
Sí.
Trataremos, dígale que trataré de hacerlo en 90 días.
He said he would try to get it done in 90 days.
Well, just to be safe, why don't we make it 120? I don't want you to get in any trouble there.
Okay, it's okay, Bob.
And Carl, this plan has been
Is it gonna-
reviewed by
is that
you,
right?
and this is acceptable?
Wait a second, do we need to call Carl up to the, or not?
Okay,
Hacer todo el cambio.
I
You want
guess.
to go ahead and bring Carl up?
Sure, that'd be fine.
Okay, Carl, if you wouldn't mind.
If you're going to ask questions of staff, then bring them up.
Okay,
That's
Carl, we
fine.
need you to come up then, please.
Carl Carver, Cobb County Stormwater.
Yes, sir. Have you reviewed the plan that's being shown to us now?
Yes, I have.
Are you confident that this will satisfactorily allow for the movement of water in such a manner as to minimize any risk of flooding to any neighbors?
Yes, the driveway that they're wanting to put in will drain into the dry well, and the impervious coverage is mitigated by that additional amount.
Did you have any other thoughts or comments that this group ought to consider in acting on this request for variances?
No, the only other thing would be, they got to come back through for their actual permit to do the work.
Okay. And my understanding is variances 1, 2, 3, as originally sought, have been withdrawn, and we're now limited to 4, which has been deleted from 54% down to 37.26%
That's correct.
on the impervious.
Yeah.
And variance number 5 request continues. Not continues, bad word, still remains part of the request, correct?
Yes, I don't remember exactly what that one was, but
Okay. Okay. Very good. Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Do you still need the applicant?
No, I'm ready to make
No.
I'm ready to
All right.
make a motion.
You guys are good. Thank you very much.
I'm ready to make a
Okay.
motion, then wait and find out if I have covered everything. Please delete the variance request by deleting, my motion is that we approve the variance request as revised as follows. Delete requests number 1, 2, and 3. Revise request number 4 to state that increase the maximum allowable impervious surface from 35% to 37.26% per existing closed paren. And variance request number 5 remains as stated. The conditions on this are that the variance granted is specific to the new plan that has been shown to everyone, with all changes as shown on the plan to be made within 120 days. John, do I need anything else in that motion? Thank you. That's my motion.
Great, thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second? All right, Barclay is seconded. Any other comments? All right, I will now call for a vote. If you'll please signify by punching. And we have a 5-0 vote to pass that motion. So thank you very much, and I think we're ready for our next case.
Yes, sir. Variance case V50, Clint Patterson, request a variance to number 1, allow a self-service storage facility to have a flat roof rather than a gable roof. And number 2, increase the maximum allowable height from 1 story or 25 feet to parapet wall to 3 stories or 40 feet to parapet wall in land lots 1 and 2 of the 20th District. The property is located at the southwest corner of Rutledge Road and Blackacre Trail on the west side of Cobb Parkway. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V50? Just one? Okay. Let the record show there's one person here opposed. Would the applicant in opposition please come forward and be sworn in?
Oh, just a second. John, we're ready for the applicant to come on up, right? Come on up to the podium if you don't mind. And if you would state your name for the record.
Good afternoon. My name's Clint, Clint Patterson. I am
Clint,
the-
you've got 10 minutes.
Well, my question is here, since we've got opposition, can I allow her to go first and then be able to answer any questions and everything else, and then make my presentation at that point. So defer my 10 minutes until that so I can get it all done at once.
There will be time for questions after. So
Okay.
as much as you can anticipate the concerns of the opposition, I'd ask you to go ahead and try and address that now and then.
I've got that. I just was
Okay.
trying to help us all out here, so.
Well, let me ask, Brian, is that,
That's just your discretion. I think generally the applicant always goes first.
yeah. Let's give you time, and then we're going to
No.
have questions for you, I'm sure, once we're
That's
done.
fine. Typically,
Okay.
I can defer in other situations, so I just wanted to ask that question. Again, variance case V50, 5043 North Cobb Parkway, District 1. I'll kind of work through this real quick as it's a repeat of last month in some circumstances here. I will say that I submitted this, so I'm not sure why it wasn't updated, but the variance request about the gable roof is removed. We have updated that per Mr. Beloin's request. So that can technically be removed. With going to the gabled roof, it did bump us up 7 foot, or I guess technically 8 foot further than we were with the parapet flat roof. So I've just updated that request here to show that. Again, showing where the property is up on the west side of Cobb Parkway. Surrounding developed properties, there is still quite a bit of undeveloped commercial, industrial, and other land out in this corridor along Cobb Parkway. You'll see up in the, what would be probably planned north on this gold area, showing the heavy industrial zone site that I am under contract to purchase and develop. This is an updated, revised plan that shows, I wanted to bring up a couple items. Again, when you look at a black and white plan, it's not always easy to understand what's green and what is pavement and everything else. So I wanted to make sure that everyone understood that we're not trying to max this site out. We've met and intend to meet all of the stormwater and all the other items that are necessary. There's no other variances sought after here. I will show and point out later, does the pointer work here? They probably can't see it. Well, so there's black dots, which would, right in that area. So Rutledge Road, from my conversations with Mr. Beloin, there's been concern about the 12 by 20 or 10 by 20 outdoor boat and RV spaces that are adjacent to Rutledge Road right there. I wanted to point out on this green space plan that one of the conditions that I am happy to accept is the addition of staggering and 2 rows of evergreen type trees that are year-round, fast-growing, and obviously help with blocking visibility. You'll see here with the grading plan, which is much more detailed, but I've again wrote in here that I will offer to add in the additional 2 rows of staggered evergreen trees in that outdoor parking area that will not only have the landscape strip that is supposed to be there by ordinance, but then would have these additional trees and then an 8-foot vinyl privacy fence to help further detract from anyone having to look in to the property. While it is the 8-foot strip of landscape, it is actually between 24 and 60 foot off of the right-of-way, off of Rutledge Road, and I wanted to bring that up because there were some questions or comments about how close that would be to the road. So up and down Rutledge there, and you can see in the green that it varies in and out there where the green space is. I also want to point out, too, that the grade on Rutledge Road sits between 947 and 950, for those that understand what that means, and then where the finished floor or pavement would be on the outdoor boat parking and where the non-climate units are in the back side of the property, which would be to the right of where that circled area is. The finished floor elevation there is 935.7. We are between 11 and 14 foot under the road where where the parking spaces and where these non-climate units sit. So with the addition of the trees, the privacy fence, and then the topo due to grading and everything else, you're talking anywhere from 19 to 22 foot of natural differences there of screening that will help eliminate or alleviate anyone's issues with that, which I've actually not heard from any of the surrounding neighbors that is a true issue, but I wanted to point that out. I will also say that with the new building, the 937 is the finished floor elevation there. If you're standing at Rutledge Road, which would be the neighboring properties, that would appear to be 33 to 36 foot tall because of the hole that we are obviously building in. So there's a lot of different circumstances to take into consideration here, but I wanted to point those out with the updated and revised grading plans. I've got the highlighted area that is a non-disturbed 50-foot buffer in the rear of the property. Again, the gentleman that I'm purchasing this property from owns that adjacent property, and I don't intend to purchase that or develop it. We will leave that buffer full intact. This is the revised three-story climate building, and I've worked again with Mr. Boulogne to try to find a look that feels residential, that has a little less institutional type of feel. This is not something I've built with these gables on here. Typically, we do what I'll show in the next picture. So we are trying to find ways to make sure that we meet that neighborhood feel up and down Cobb Parkway and that specific area. Sign, while the sign was not a part of this whole thing, it was a request of Mr. Boulogne. I have agreed to make that update, and then I've shown the black vinyl fence in the bottom right corner, which again, we do a vinyl fence so you don't have wear and tear on wood, restaining issues, and from an upkeep standpoint, it just looks a heck of a lot better. The previous design was similar to what you see here, and again, I'll flip back. You can kind of see the differences for those that weren't here last month and maybe not near as familiar with the case, but I'm open to either. Again, the gable is perfectly fine with me as long as it's acceptable to you folks. It obviously, with the topo and going to that flat roof and parapet type of look, you can bring that down to almost 25 to 28 foot standing in Rutledge Road from the finished floor and not give off nearly as tall of a look. The site is zoned heavy industrial. I think everybody understands from last month what that entails. The maximum building height for all other uses outside of the one in particular that I'm trying to do here is 50 foot and 4 stories. So in all likelihood, any other type of use that is allowed by right would not even need to come see you guys for this. There are several items here that I just pulled out of the allowed uses by right because of the intensity of my use being lack thereof. This is a very slow-moving type of use, and you're not driving a bunch of traffic to it, as we all know. There are several items up here that I could assure you that the neighbors would not be fans of, that they would never even have to come see you guys. They could submit to the county and move forward, and nobody has a say in what's going on here. So I want to make that point for the fact that I'm not coming in here trying to put in a dairy farm that's going to smell. I'm not trying to come in and put in emissions, an inspection station, recycling, truck terminals. I'm not taking away from the value of these. I'm creating value in this area, and we're investing in your guys' community.
Mr. Passon, you got just over a minute.
Understood.
Okay.
Tourist services are the neighboring properties. Again, like-kind uses to what's allowed in heavy industrial. You'll see a lot of these automotive, boat sales, bus stations, emission and inspections. All of those things are allowed in those. You'll see the R30, again, this is stuff I went through last week. I do want to point out in my last 45 seconds here, Cobb County owned a property and zoned a property at 1678, 1680 Atlanta Highway in TS, into TS. I believe it was GC originally. And it is between a body shop and a welding shop, and they felt that, that was the appropriate use and area for that. I want to bring this up because those are the types of uses that I'm seeing, I guess, I guess are compatible with TS, and I'm bringing in a much nicer looking product than that, and I certainly hope that that's understood.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Sure. I didn't get to my back part, so I'll finish that up.
You may have a chance later on when we
I
go to
certainly will.
questions. All right. We'll now ask for the opposition. Please come forward. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
If you
My
could
name's
please.
Teresa
There you go.
Stendahl.
Okay,
residing
thank you very much.
5850
You know the drill. You've got,
Unfortunately, I
you've got
do.
10 minutes.
I reside at 5850 Autry Church Road for the last 46 years. I've been involved in the development of the Lake Allatoona corridor for 22-plus years. And while I understand most of you are not familiar with that corridor, it is a unique corridor within Cobb County. You can't do there what you can do in other places of unincorporated Cobb County for specific purposes. Most importantly, because Lake Allatoona is a reservoir that serves over 1 million people for drinking water. However, there have been a lot of changes in the 46 years I've been there. The most, I guess, impacting was the Northwest Vulnerability Study, which I mentioned at the last hearing. That became the land use plan for the Lake Allatoona corridor. And while this HI zoned piece of property, it's a legitimate zoning, nobody is questioning that whatsoever. However, it is not an industrial corridor. The industrial type businesses that are along the Cobb Parkway on the east side of Cobb Parkway have been there before I got there, okay? They're just there. You're not gonna get rid of them. They're just there. The HI is kind of a leftover zoning because it was rezoned to HI in 1992 for the purpose of self-storage, which could have been and could still remain appropriate use, not so much now, except for the fact that at that time in 1992, Z31, when approved, there was a site plan that was approved, and though not site plan specific, what you do have is the fact that it was a total of 2 buildings, 45,000 square feet. That's it. You're now looking at, I believe the numbers come in somewhere between 83 and 87,000 square feet, 3 stories. While Mr. Patterson may be building in a hole, it doesn't negate the fact that he's asking for a 3-story building. You're not going to change that. Self-storage, according to county code, is to be single-story. That's it. It's just very clear to me. It's a black and white issue. The corridor along from the bridge at Lake Allatoona to Bartow County is a neighborhood activity center. And it has been since 2014 with the adoption of the Northwest Study. So to try to say that, it's an industrial corridor, it is not, and it's never going to be. Most of the zonings along the parkway, you have some original GCs that until someone purchases to develop, it's going to remain GC because it's a deleted zoning category at the present time. Relative to, we have a self-storage that's 0.4 miles from this proposed site, which is Parkatoy. He has 59 rooms for a total of 18,000 square feet on 7 developed acres. In 2007, Parkatoy came into Cobb County zoning to rezone his additional 4 acres for expansion. He was denied by Cobb County staff. because of being surrounded by residential properties. This in and of itself is surrounded somewhat by residential properties. I personally wouldn't want to be one of the residents on Rutledge Road that has $1 million property and be looking at a 3-story self-storage down the street. But some people don't care. I do. There's a traffic issue that has not and cannot seemingly be addressed by the BZA. And that is the fact that there have been 42 accidents at the intersection of Blackacre Trail and Cobb Parkway in 2 years, 6 of which resulted in deaths. This has always been a traffic problem. This facility there, at the density that Mr. Patterson is requesting, literally is just a nightmare waiting to happen. If this case went to zoning, there would be a traffic study. There could be some intersection improvements paid for by Mr. Patterson or however the county wanted to work it out. But it should not remain as it is when you're looking at this kind of density for a commercial development at that particular area. The biggest issue, I think, is the height of the building. Parkatoy is 1 story. Until you get into a city limits along Cobb Parkway, you don't have anything other than single-story self-storage. And I do not believe that preferential treatment should be given to this applicant through a variance that can then open a Pandora's box to every other developer along this corridor for preferential treatment of something that's outside of what the county code allows. I believe that the facility that Mr. Patterson would build is very nice, is very architecturally pleasing. It's just not appropriate at this location, at that density, at that height, in a neighborhood activity center that's 1.5 miles long. I respectfully submit and request that you deny this variance.
All right. Thank you very much, Mrs. Stendel. Well, as you know, this case falls into District 1, and Mr. Beloin, I know, has been very actively engaged with both parties on this case as well, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Fred, to lead us on this part of the discussion.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Let me start with Amy Diaz, if I could, if I could get her to come forward.
Amy Diaz, DOT.
Okay, and so Monday at our work session, you raised a issue regarding a turn within the proposed plan. Can you enlighten us on that?
Correct. If you can bring the site plan up. So it is a county development standard that we want 50 feet of what's called uninterrupted access between the driveway that accesses a public road and either the first parking space or the first internal drive aisle in the development. And if you look at the parking that is to the side of the building on this plan, the drive aisle that allows access to that parking is closer than 50 feet to the right-of-way.
Okay. Can we give any better guidance to the applicant as to what could be done to cure that issue?
We're certainly willing to work with them. One of the things that we mentioned was the possibility of putting the parking on the back. However, it was raised in the work session that since that might be an office parking for visitors, that might not be amenable to the applicant. Shifting the building backwards, if that can be done, would also allow some more spacing for that drive aisle. Other than that, relocating the parking certainly could erase the need for that parking if it can be done with the intended gating situation. So it's really something that's fluid depending on what the developer is willing to do to work with us on that. Since it is a low volume use for self-storage, it is something that once the applicant has worked with us as best we can see if we can get a variance to do it 50 feet from the edge of traveled pavement rather than 50 feet from the right-of-way line. That is a variance that we can explore within DOT, but this one doesn't meet that either, so it still needs some modification.
Okay. Now, I'm sorry to spring this on you, but since the issue was just raised, it was stated that there were 42 accidents at the intersection of Blackacre and North Cobb Parkway within the last 2 years, 6 of them, with 6 of those accidents resulting in a death, or there being a total of 6 deaths. Do you have any knowledge about that?
I do not. If that information can be shared with me, that is, of course, a state route, so that is an intersection that belongs to the Georgia Department of Transportation, but I'll be glad to facilitate getting that brought to their awareness and seeing what can be done.
Okay. A concern I had was the concept of any boat hauling and travel, given the intersection there at Blackacre and 41, then the need to make 2 turns or 3 turns rather quickly to get into this facility. Do you have any thoughts at all regarding relative safety of amateurs driving U-Haul vehicles as opposed to hauling boats? Do you have any safety thoughts in that regard?
So again, since it's a low volume use and their access is off a local roadway, we typically would not ask for a left turn lane. So if a accident issue is raised, that could lead to future turn restrictions. But given the placement of their building, I'm not certain of any improvement that just says this is what should be done. We normally would not put one on Rutledge Road. We would not recommend that an access on Blackacre Trail be installed because it'll be too close to the signal. So it will exacerbate the problem instead of relieve it. So I'm not certain if they intend primary use of boats, then that's something that can be discussed with us to see what can be done to get those out of the way.
Okay. And then there was a mention of a traffic study. The suggestion was made that if this matter was brought up in a rezoning context, that you would have required a traffic study. Can you comment on that?
Traffic studies are only required when the building is 50,000 square feet or greater by code. So this one would not have required it. For self-storage buildings, again, low traffic generator, typically all we end up with for that is what we call a submittal 1, which is the trip generation, expected distribution, and assignment information. So it's not a full traffic study with recommendations about roadway improvements, even if it was over 50,000 square feet, which to my knowledge, as of the last site plan, it was not.
I calculated it as being over 50,000, so.
Then if it had gone through the full zoning process, what we would have asked for is the submittal 1. Only if something had been identified as a problem in submittal 1 would we go on to submittal 2 for a self-storage building.
What would submittal 1 be, just so I know?
It's the trip generation, expected trip distribution, any projects in the area that they identify, things of that nature.
Okay.
It's basically the assumptions that you build a full study upon, but without going on to the full study unless it's required.
Is there anything else that you want to notify this group of at this time?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, maybe someone else on this board has some questions for this staff member.
Anybody else got a question for Amy? Okay. Thank you, Amy. Back to you, though, Fred.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess I'll go back to the applicant at this point. First of all, there was something you didn't get a chance to tell us during your presentation that you wanted to tell us. Can you quickly summarize what that is?
Yeah, could you flip that back? Thank you. Again, and thank you all for coming up and sharing your thoughts, and Ms. Diaz as well. We're happy to work with you. As I stated before, we've talked about all of those items, and we're happy to update those and make things work however they need to happen. Just real quickly, with the comparison, Ms. Stendahl did not have, I don't think, the appropriate information that was shared. And again, I think there was some different stuff that was exaggerated there with the zoning and the traffic studies and accidents. But these are the two projects that are in actually District 1. and I've done a takeoff on all of those. And so while there may be only 15,000 square foot of self-storage with the neighboring property on his 5 developed acres, which this is taken off GIS, so take it for what you want there. I didn't have it surveyed. He's got 225 outdoor parking spaces at 10 by 35, which puts this rentable storage square footage up over almost to 110,000 square foot on that land, which translates to just under 22,000 square foot per acre. The extra space that was just recently developed, which is new storage down the road, they've packed their site. They don't even have detention on their site, and they're at almost 24,000. We're right in line with both of those properties, so to say that this is in excess, it's not. It's today's self-storage, and I believe Cobb County knows that the multi-story is preferred in today's world. I will also say that there was a late objection, which they didn't show up today. We've also not had any opposition from Rutledge Road, which I, again, continue to believe that those are the most important people, and I would be happy to address those folks that live a mile away. It's tough for me to understand where they're coming from outside of their own agenda. The concern was raised about the Governor's Club and the fairway views or the homes in there. And I'll just say that I made a quick trip out there this morning and added this into my presentation. It's pretty dense over there, and he's 3 or 4 properties away from even being close to touching our property. So to spout off and make an uninformed comment or decision, I have a little bit of an issue with that. You'll see the dense trees and forest. I can also pull up. I've clicked on the fairway because they don't even own any of the properties adjacent, and then I've got the blue around the corner piece. It's 0.3 miles, and she's over a mile away driving wise. I just want to make sure that everyone understands what we're going back and forth on. And if these folks were on Rutledge Road, it would be a concern of mine. But I feel like I've done everything that Mr. Beloin's asked and taken into consideration some of the stuff that Ms. Stendahl has also suggested. And so I've got up here what I feel is reasonable and that we're willing to do to help make this thing go. From a traffic and a safety standpoint, this is one of the safest commercial uses there is. So that's that. And Mr. Beloin, if you have anything for me, I'm happy to answer.
I do. I have a number of questions for you. So before I get there, though, let me just first indicate, this is kind of a cream puff question. I'm the one who asked you to go out and pull up the data, if you would be kind enough to do so on the
Sure thing.
On the 2 closest self-storage facilities
Yes, sir.
nearby to your proposed location, correct?
Correct.
And I appreciate you doing so. So, next question. Are we to understand the vinyl fencing you showed us would go entirely around the perimeter of this property, as shown? Is that where you'd propose to
correct.
place the vinyl fencing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It was called to my attention, I believe by Ms. Stendahl yesterday, and I apologize for not calling this out to your attention, but your 25-foot building setback line, if I'm reading it right, you're showing a lot of parking spaces within the building setback. Is that correct? Particularly to the, if up is north on this, it would be to the southeast, I'm sorry, to the southwest corner.
Down the boat and RV area down there that's circled on what I've got pulled up now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, I mean, again, that's a building setback line. That's and we've got the 8-foot landscape, so I appreciate the engineer knowledge that was brought, but I believe we're within the code by doing what we've got planned out there. If I'm not, then I'm happy to address that. But we have submitted these this site plan and paid the $200 review fee and everything else to get initial comments back to make sure that we're in compliance, and I fully intend to be in compliance. So if there's an issue, I will address it at that time.
Similarly, apparently your design professional understands the setback to be 20 feet along the lawn diagonal boundary, is that correct?
I believe so. I'm not that gentleman, but I do. He is the civil engineer and does a lot of work in Cobb County, so I trust his judgment and pay him a lot of money to do so.
And again, he's shown a series of parking spaces within that setback, is that correct?
There may be would be the plan right side of that. Yes, there are, 4 or 5. But then the balance of that to keep the drive aisles cleared and enough space for movements from boats, U-Hauls, people coming in and out. We've not put parking over there to maximize that. We've tried to take care of the needs of the customer.
If and to the extent that Cobb Code expressly stated that there was not to be storage of any parked vehicles within those setbacks, is that something you're asking for another series of variances on, or is that
No.
something you're willing to revise?
I'll revise that, certainly. If I'm out of line with that, I'll happily revise that.
Okay. You agree that the 2 facilities that you took pictures of and you have showing to me right now, they appear to be 2 stories in nature rather than 3?
That is correct. I think that the extra space is actually a faux 2, but is actually 3. But again, I didn't develop it, so I can't tell you that for 100% certainty. I can only go off the square footage of the system that I utilize, and there's no way that there's that much square footage in 2 stories.
With respect to setbacks, I would just ask your design, if you're willing to submit another plan, I would ask your design professional to look at code section 134-279-9, small d.
130 what, sorry?
134-279-9, small d.
Okay. I will do so, and like I said, if we're out of compliance with that boat parking, I'm not asking for a variance on that. I'll make the updates necessary, and we'll make it work within what the ball field is and the regulations we've got to play in.
Okay. I'd also note under district regulations, 134-191, setbacks being established for HI, which is the category this is in, which include major side setback of 25 or 35 feet, minor side setback of 20 feet, and a minimum rear setback of 40 feet. So I just call that to your attention. I don't think the 40 feet is an issue because you have a 50-foot buffer back there
Sure.
now, right?
Nope.
Let me make sure I understand the size correctly. I'm showing the size of the building. My calculations show the building is roughly, and this could be off by a couple of feet because you have a couple little notches in there, but I calculated it at roughly 23,436 square feet per floor.
Yes.
Okay.
For
So
the-
so
yeah.
that would make building A 70,308 square feet, correct?
That is correct.
Building B, 9,263 square feet, and Building C, 7,073 square feet, for a total of 86,644 square feet. Did I get any of that incorrect?
I don't have a calculator in front of me, but I do believe that's correct. It's
Okay.
close enough.
And the 1992 rezoning, which interestingly, I may have shared with you already or bored you with already, that Mr. Homan was part of. He was the chair of this group up until earlier this year. That was going to have two-story buildings at a total height of, or at a total square footage of roughly 44,000 square feet. Is that correct?
I believe so, but again, that was not site plan specific. It was only a zoning thing, and then the stipulations that were put in there, the 5 stipulations that were put in there on the zoning, we fully meet. I've updated, again, the front facades on that building and the back buildings. I did confirm that with Mr. Peterson and his staff that we were not held to the 45,000 square foot. So, but yes, their plan, I believe, did show something similar to that. Had a lot more parking because it was employees and a lot more traffic generation.
Okay. You've noted the tourism angle at play up there, right?
I did.
You have some concerns that tourism next to welding may not fly, or?
I don't have a concern with it. I wanted to make sure that it was addressed to anyone who had a concern.
Sure.
And I think that, I guess my real issue is, I don't have an issue. Again, I think these are more than compatible uses. If you go back and read what's bolded here, we certainly see that is it's the case of compatibility here. That's pulled straight from the ordinance. And again, I'm struggling to see where there's an issue from a compatibility standpoint and a use. I'm not bringing in one of these heavy hitting by right uses that wouldn't even come see you guys, and so that's. I'm trying to do everything I can here to make sure that we're being appropriate and everything else without overstepping that boundary.
Sure. Well, staff has been kind enough to pull for me some of the 2007 rezoning requests filed by Garvis Sams respecting one of those two other properties. And I just want to go over, and I just reviewed this morning for the first time, so I apologize for not bringing this up with you previously. But let me just address some of the things he proposed in there and see which, if any, of these things you might find acceptable. He was proposing limiting color scheme to earth tone colors. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we're trying to achieve here. I think I spoke to the earth tone specifically the last time.
Okay, he proposed brick and/or masonry on at least 3 sides. I think you came up with a word that I still can't pronounce, but it has the word cement in it.
EFIS.
No. I think it was either cementitious or cementatious, neither of which is within my vocabulary.
Okay, no, I apologize. No, all 3 sides of that building are brickers, cement type. There's EFIS above the brick on the 2 wing sides of the building, if you will. And if there's heartburn over that, I'm happy to put it as brick. I mean, at this point, that's. I changed the front, so there was no question per the 5 stipulations in the 92 zoning, because I felt like that EFIS fell under that category. But if there were questions, I'm not going to horse around or fight that portion of it.
No roof-mounted air conditioning units or other mechanical equipment on the roofs of the buildings?
We don't roof mount stuff. Everyone wants safe and dry.
Mechanical equipment located
On the ground.
He showed here within the interior of the proposed development. Is that something that your plan calls for as well?
That will be, or someone will be taking them.
Hours of operation, he proposed to be limited from 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday and 9 till 6 on Saturdays. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, that's perfectly fine. I mean, was his staffed? Did he have somebody on staff there? I mean, we've got office hours that, again, are in the ranges of 9 to 6 Monday through Friday, and call it a 10 to 5 on Saturday. But for paying customers, because of work schedules and everything else, folks do have the ability to key code in and out. But that's how we track all of those items and know who's in and out. That's a 2-way gate, so they got to punch in to get in, they got to punch in to get out. And that's how we keep it safe and make sure we know who's in and out of these facilities.
Okay. All right. You were not intending to have somebody live there permanently or anything?
No.
Okay.
I believe the toy truck or storage, whatever the neighbor is there, he has an apartment above, which I don't know if you guys allow by right anymore or not, but that's not our intent. And while he's got 1-story storage in the back, he's got 2.5-story front building as well.
Okay. Use of low-intensity environmental type lighting?
That's correct.
Yeah. Security lighting will be wall packs, hooded, environmentally sensitive, fitted with non-glare lenses and cutoff shields. Is that?
That is correct. Then that way, and again, you'll submit a photometric with, it can be, zoning typically doesn't want to see that, but when you go through the building department, they want to see that stuff to make sure nothing's leaving the site. And again, nothing will leave the site on this. Those are all, any of the wall packs that are on the non-climate units in the rear are underneath the gutter systems and go straight down so they don't glare off. That's just, part of the trade. But it provides as much
Would
security as
would
anything.
you like us to hold this case for another month and give you another opportunity to submit another plan?
I guess my question is what is there that is out there that can't be, I mean, this is a height variance, not necessarily zoning, so I'm trying to understand what is out there left to do. Teresa's always going to have her opposition of what she thinks should and shouldn't come up and down the corridor, but she's also not paying all the taxes for Cobb County, and so that needs to, you know, and I was happy to meet with Mr. Horton, whoever manages the governor's town, but an email late and then not showing up. Nobody's come on Rutledge. I guess I'm having a hard time understanding what is left for me to do to make sure that there's nothing we can't work through at staff level to get this thing fine-tuned and make sure it's ready to go if there's stipulations on this for us.
Hey, Fred, if I could interrupt.
Certainly.
It may help just to field a few questions from some other board members.
That's fine.
If maybe that'll help us.
Happy to allow that.
Okay.
Certainly.
So with that, let's open it up for anybody else that might have some questions for either the applicant or the opposition. You going to take it Barclay first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just since there was a conversation, concerns about traffic, do you happen to know the average number of trips that come in and out on a daily basis or weekly basis?
So it's. I think I shared that with the group last month, which you weren't here for, or you were here. Sorry, you were sitting over there. I apologize. It's 6 per 100 units, and call this roughly 500 units, so 30 trips a week for this whole development is the traffic amount. I mean, the traffic is minimal, and again, when it's brought up by the audience, I think Amy spoke to it. It's a non-issue when it comes to storage.
Anything else? Do you have any questions? Okay. Ryan?
sir.
None? I don't have any for you.
Sure.
But I will offer some thoughts to Fred, because I know you're trying to figure out what to do with this one. But, you know, as I was thinking about Ms. Stendel's concerns and reservations, I mean, there are two things that I kind of struggle with. One is that there's no opposition from Rutledge Road, right. And, you know, my bigger concern would be if some of the immediate neighbors had concern. And then the other about, you know, the zoning designation, to me, it is not in our scope to deal with that. That's obviously Planning Commission. But if that were a concern, I would think it should be brought up before we have a case where, you know, we're talking about a use that does fall within the definition or of the designation right now. And I do think there are other uses that wouldn't be nearly as desirable. So, you know, I'm kind of, right now, I'm leaning towards supporting the application for what that's worth, but I'm going to turn it back to you.
I have one more.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Maybe the question is to staff that says, based on the different things that will have to go through review as he builds the building, that will be when these things can be corrected, and we can make note of those items that need to be focused on as he goes through the approval process, because he's going to be going back through staff a great deal. Is that a possible?
Well, plan review, I mean, is a process, if it needs to go through plan review through a variance request when they do the building. There's not so much as a reporting mechanism back to this body, and we have tried to steer away from that in the past, so.
And Brian, if I could just ask, in conjunction with the plan review, there's no opportunity for the public to have any input in that process, is that correct? They're only allowed to sit there, they're not allowed to ask questions or make comments, as with our work sessions?
They can view, they cannot participate.
And one other question.
Sure.
And I'm not sure that you can answer this or not, but it looks like the area of land between your property and Cobb Parkway, and I think there is a strip right,
I'm working with GDOT right now on that area to be cleaned up.
I was going to say, because
Yep.
nobody's going to see the three-story structure behind.
I've already
what's
gotten
there.
approval to have that stuff removed there.
Okay.
And so that has been in the works behind the scenes as we've worked through this process. I've worked with the gentleman, Paul Denard, who's in charge of this area, and I've got to submit the formal application, which I was planning to do once I had further updated and completed plans. Can I ask you to switch back real quick? I want to add something to Ms. Russell's statement about the variance request and it being caught at planning, if you will. How I've done this in the past, and again, we're 40 plus deep in these in the last 4.5 or so years. I've added in things here at the end, such as the monument sign color changing, the roof line to the gable agrees for the additional evergreen trees and the screening over there, the 8-foot fence, which again, 6-foot vinyl chain link, I think is allowed by right. Not asking for relief on the 50-foot natural buffer. So I've tried to set these up with my attorney from a request or a variance acceptance from the applicant that can be placed on the project to help planning as they move through this process.
Got it. I do have one other question for
Sure thing.
Ms. Diaz. Could I get you to come back up for 1 second? And I don't want to belabor a point, but I do think, you touched on this one earlier, Amy, and that's with respect to that 50-foot buffer or whatever, yeah. Given, what we've heard about the traffic that is likely from this development, how critical is that? I mean, is that something that you feel is critically important?
It is
And-
something that can be worked on in the plan review process.
Uh-huh.
So that's something that I haven't researched the plan review case, but it's likely it was already in the initial comments for plan review because it's a
Okay.
standard.
And then I would ask Mr. Patterson, given that, we don't know exactly where that will shake out, thank you, Amy, that was it, just, are you flexible in terms of working around
Certainly.
a potential requirement there on?
Again, I don't
So-
intend to come back, so I'll work through those items that have been brought. Again, I spoke with Ms. Diaz last month on this, and I didn't want to prematurely get my engineer engaged with her until we had this approval and everything else. And then at that point, again, if there's stipulations between the outdoor parking stuff or the office parking, we'll play within the guidelines. I'm not asking for relief on that
Okay.
stuff.
That's all
Yeah.
I've got. Thank you. Anybody else got any questions for Mr. Patterson? Okay, back to you, Fred.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess a question quickly for John Peterson. And that would be, he doesn't have to be sworn, correct? I can just pose the question, or? Okay. My understanding, Mr. Sam's rezoning request, Z90 in 2007, notwithstanding all of his stipulations he provided here, the staff recommendation was for denial in that regard, is that correct?
My recollection, it was for denial, for some reasons stated within the denial.
Thank you. Okay. And then just let me place in the record as well, if I can find it, a document I received this morning. Oh, there it is. From the gentleman who owns Governor's Town Club, who just filed an objection to the construction of a 3-story facility out here. And with that, just in fairness to the opposition, would you like to come forward for just a minute? I invited the applicant to say a couple more words about a couple aspects of his presentation. He commented specifically on the other two structures, parking facilities in that area on Highway 41. Do you have any response to any of those comments that you'd like to make?
I'm trying to be polite.
Good?
Information shared by Mr. Patterson was not totally truthful regarding the Parkatoy self-storage facility. It is single-story, except for the office, which is 2 stories, and it is for office storage only. There is no apartment there. It is restricted not to be used for that. Parkatoy was constructed completely within county code and county land use at the time. The issue maybe not reflecting Mr. Patterson's statement that I live a mile away. I still live in the corridor, and it's a unique corridor. And you're not going to change that. This variance in and of itself can literally negate 22-plus years of community involvement to establish what is a limited developed corridor around Lake Allatoona. I have yet to see from Mr. Patterson or any discussion here, where is the hardship? His application says the hardship is the 50-foot natural buffer. That 50-foot natural buffer was a condition of rezoning of Z31 in 1992. How is a condition of rezoning a hardship? Because if that's the case, I mean, why do we even have, zoning, planning commissioners, board of commissioners? And if that sounds very emphatic, it's meant to be. I do not believe that this is a variance that should be granted for an additional 2 stories that it was not allowed by any other applicant within Cobb County, such as Parkatoy, even in 2007. He only wanted 2 stories. And relative to staff recommendations for denial, it is staff's opinion that there are existing and changing conditions affecting the use and development of the property which gives supporting grounds for denying the applicant's rezoning proposal. The applicant's proposal is substantially not in accordance with the Cobb County Comprehensive Plan. That in and of itself should deny this variance, because this particular variance request is not in compliance with the comprehensive plan, the Northwest study, or the entire corridor development standards. It just isn't.
Well, this gentleman shows the Parkatoy in the documents he submitted to me. He shows Parkatoy as having 15,476 feet of self-storage space. Do you dispute that number?
That's probably about right. On 7 acres, let's be clear, it's on 7 acres.
Well, whether on 5 or 7. Okay. Thank you very much for those comments. Okay. Those are all my questions for staff. If anyone else has any other information they wish to glean from anyone, if not, I'll try to make a motion.
One other thing. Ms. Stendhal, could you come back up for 1 second? I just, the reference to the corridor study again, can you help me understand where you see that what's been proposed here is really at odds with what was covered in that study?
The HI zoning is legitimate, no question about that. But he has referenced, in fairness, there's kind of a pass being given because he's not asking for rezoning. He doesn't need to. I mean, it does allow self-storage. But on the other hand, he has continued to refer to this as an industrial corridor. It is not an industrial corridor any longer. That changed in 2014 under the Northwest study. It's not a CAC. It is a NAC. It is meant to be limited development. The properties that are along, as he referenced, the properties that are GC along the corridor, It's mainly because along Cobb Parkway, you have deleted zonings of GC. I mean, that's been there for decades. Every property that will be developed that is GC zoned currently today will have to come back in for a full rezoning, not a variance, a full rezoning. And the only other three-story building along Cobb Parkway in this area is Wellstar. And it is 77,000 square feet for the urgent care, an additional 20,000 square feet for the surgical center on 29 acres. 29 acres. He has no access from Cobb Parkway, although he has a Cobb Parkway address. He's on a local road. I just don't see how a variance can be granted when there's no hardship, and the future land use plan and the Northwest study are totally being ignored in this whole process.
So if he were proposing a two-story building,
No, he needs to build one story, just like Parkatoy had to build one story. Two-story by Parkatoy was denied by staff.
okay, thank you very much. Okay, Fred.
Okay. Thank you for that question, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
That's a great question. At this point, before I could make a motion, or I could solicit further comments from the others, but I'm inclined to go in the direction that the question was just asked by our chair. I could either do that in the form of a motion for denial of the plan as submitted, or in the form of a deletion and motion for approval of a revised plan that I would summarize in the motion. And I just solicit the comments of my fellow board members before I made a motion.
Would you prefer doing that than holding to see if we can reach any kind of resolution or not? Or is it not?
I don't think they're going to resolve it. It's between the two, and it's between the 1 and 3 story, and I think your suggestion right there would be a great compromise. So
Okay.
if anyone has any thoughts, though, before I proceed, I'd be happy to hear them.
I probably would be more concerned if the topography was different. If he was on a flat piece of land, it was there was no way to, but the fact that it is down lower where it does not appear to be as tall, that's where the height has not concerned me based on how it will sit with the buffers around it.
Thank you. You have something? No? No.
No, I just concur with Barclay.
I'll try my motion anyway, and we'll see where I get with it. But my motion would be for denial of the project as proposed for a variety of reasons. Before I make my motion, let me state this. My concern, another concern I have, is that a stated reason for variance here is the fact that there's a 50-foot buffer in the rear. The 50-foot buffer in the rear was an express condition of the rezoning to HI in 1992, so I'm not sure that that constitutes a valid ground at all for a variance. That having been said, let me get to my motion. The motion would be for denial of the plan as proposed. However, for approval of a revised plan to include the following. Building A is shown on the proposed plan that's been before us to be changed or revised from a 3-story climate-controlled structure to a 2-story climate-controlled structure. All proposed exterior parking spaces shown in these setback areas on the proposed plan to be removed, deleted, such that there would be no parking within any setbacks. It was specifically stated, it having been specifically stated by the applicant, he does not seek any variances other than the 2 expressly requested. That The applicant, having said he can live with these things and conditions that were customarily requested of other self-storage structures, color scheme be limited to earth tone colors. No roof-mounted air conditioning or units or mechanical equipment on the roofs of any buildings. Mechanical equipment for climate-controlled storage units shall be located within the interior of the proposed development. Hours of operation shall be limited 7 a.m. till 9 a.m., or 9 p.m. rather, Monday through Saturday, and 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. on Saturday. Lighting to be low-intensity environmental type lighting. Security lighting to be wall packs hooded with non-glare lenses and cutoff shields. I'm sorry. What day did I say rather than Sunday?
Saturday.
I'm sorry. 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. on Sunday. And 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday. That would be my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm a bit confused, but,
So,
okay.
So I have two issues with the motion as stated. If there's a motion to deny, then that's where it stops. I would advise that you can't start putting conditions on
Right.
a denial. It
Yep.
speaks for itself. Two is the variance in question here is to the height and the
Right.
flat roof, to the roof and the height.
Right.
That's only the things up for discussion and approval or denial. And to start getting into other items would be outside the purview of this Board of Appeals.
So we would need to rephrase the
Well,
motion.
If Mr. Boyne's motion is just to deny, then I would suggest that should stop and speak for itself and take a vote on that. And then if that vote fails, then there'll be a subsequent motion which might contain some other, another motion or some other items, but they only need to stick to the first and second variance is applied for and which is for consideration here.
Okay, thank you.
What's the play? Yes, sir.
Can
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm
Can
sorry.
you want to come back up to the podium? Sorry. Wait.
Sorry, this just isn't my first rodeo, so I just want to make sure I got it. Can we not?
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry,
just-
yeah.
Mr.
Who
Chairman.
you want to, yeah.
Real
go ahead.
quick, just,
Yep.
we already have a motion
We need to go ahead and,
that has been provided.
well, we sort of
And it needs
have
to be
one.
revised,
Yeah.
but before we start asking questions. and
Okay,
We
let's
might
go
want
ahead
a
and
second and
complete
then
the
discussion.
process. Got it.
But
Okay.
Based upon my second comment, my motion would be for denial, but without prejudice to the applicant's right to file another application because I think variances have been requested by implication by the filing of this plan.
Okay, fair enough. So I'll look for a second to that motion, please. We've got a second. Any questions or discussion here?
Now I'm confused. The first one is to allow self-service storage to have a flat roof rather than gabled. Now, hasn't that been
Yes.
redesigned, so is that even part of the request anymore?
No, I don't
So
think so.
that needs to be removed. And so the only thing that's in question is the height of the building. Is that correct? That is the only thing we can act on?
That's correct.
that is what is being considered.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure that I was clear. Thank you.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, okay, I'm sorry. So,
I may not have a district, but I have. Is the project,
do we need him to come back up?
yes, I need.
Okay.
Yeah,
yep.
I'm sorry. Is the project financially feasible if we have to go to 2 stories?
It will have to be evaluated. I've looked at that in the past, and typically you don't see these at that. Once you add elevators, you add the cost, and again, with the grade changes, it'll have to be looked at. It's a question I can't answer today, but I would lean towards no.
That's fair.
Okay, so we've got a call for a vote. And I want to make sure that we're clear on what we're doing here. The motion is to deny. So if you're voting 4, you're voting for a motion to deny, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Without prejudice to his
Right.
right to submit another plan.
Right. Okay, thank you. Go
Can
ahead.
I ask a question really fast? Or do they have to vote? Sorry.
Let's go ahead
Chairman,
and,
I would not recommend allowing questions. at
yeah,
this
let's go
point.
ahead and we'll take the
is being
vote.
taken.
We'll take the vote. All right, so we've got a motion to approve, or a vote to approve of the motion to deny, 3-2, with Ms. McSwain and Ms. Russell voting against. All right. Do we want the question that you were going to ask a second ago, or is that, oh, that was, okay, that was it for now, so, okay, got it.
This matter has been taken care of. It is.
Got it.
Is now complete.
Okey-doke. Thank you very much. So we may be revisiting this one again, I guess, but for now, that's it for our regular case agenda. I want to thank everybody, and do want to ask the rest of the board, though, we need to deal with a couple of housekeeping items. Specifically, we've got to approve the minutes from our last BZA hearing and our last work session. So have you all had a chance to review those documents? All right. Is there a motion to approve? We do have, is that a motion? And a second? And we have a second. Any discussion on this? Okay, call for a vote. If you could please cast your votes. And that's a motion to approve of the minutes by 5-0. And I think that concludes all of our business. I think we're ready to, yes, ma'am. You want to put on your mic?
Just want to make y'all aware that unfortunately, my family vacation is in July during our work session and the hearing.
Hearing.
So just wanted to be sure everybody knew that in case we needed a quorum.
We'll miss you, and I hope you have a good time.
We usually do, thank you.
All right, I think we're now ready to adjourn. Can I get a motion to do so, please? And is there a second? Great, let's please cast our votes. And we're waiting on Barkley to, oh, yeah. We're adjourning.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep. To be in compliance with Robert's rules. No, you're good. Thank you. So the motion to approve and adjourn is 5-0. Thank you all very much.